You mentioned Freddie Powers earlier, and I wanted to kind of delve into his kind of his mentorship and who you became later on, because he was instrumental in your young career, especially from
Hmm.
the standpoint of writing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would love for you to tell us how Freddie, what he taught you, how you met him, and what exactly do you still lean on today that you got from him?
Wow, that's a long story.
Yeah.
Meaning we had a lot of years, a lot of great years. So I met Freddie about age 16 as well. That was a really good year for me in music.
It sounds like
Uh,
it. Good lord.
yeah, it's like God just went here, here, here,
Mm-hmm.
here. uh, so this is wild, but I wanted to experience a lot of things. We're in the city. Um, at that point, we had moved to uh, the outskirts of Round Rock. We had a little more land at that time, which was great. All the neighbors had horses. Kept begging my parents to get horses. They wouldn't let me, so I got sheep. I I showed sheep in FFA. Okay, so and I named them Budweiser because I was sponsored by Budweiser. So what are you gonna do? And tequila.
16. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah. And of course I would wash them and like bleach their little fur and let them come in the house, And my mom was like, "Get them out of the house." I was like, "Yeah, I have a diaper on them. They're fine." I've always been the same.
I
Okay,
told
it's
you to
never
get me
changed.
horses. They don't have diapers for
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Well,
This
this
is your
one's
fault.
gonna lay. Yeah, this one's gonna lay on the couch with me, and we're gonna watch cartoons. It's Saturday. So anyway, I've always been me. I love my animals. So um, yeah, I lost my train of thought because I'm thinking
Freddie
about sheep.
Powers. Freddie Powers.
Okay, so I wanted to experience things, and my friend had mentioned taking salsa lessons. So I'm like, yeah, why not? My grandparents were into Hispanic culture. Let's go
Mm-hmm.
do some salsa lessons. So I did one dance lesson with this guy, and then he came out and saw me at a show, and he was like, "Wow, what is this?" Because I had all my friends from high school coming to my show, so it was packed, and it was a big show. Like we had lights. I was running all around the stage. I was jumping off the stage. I mean, I had a lot of energy. I mean, if you see my show these days, I still have a lot of energy. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine when I was 16.
Right.
Uh, so he introduced me to this lady, Molly McKnight. And Molly's father was the Texas Senator, Peyton McKnight. And after I met her, we just fell in love. I call her my adopted mom. And she introduced me to Pootie Locke, who was the tour manager for Willie Nelson for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And then she introduced me to Freddie Powers and Catherine Powers. So she was a huge factor in my career taking off. She introduced me to Sonny Throckmorton. Then those guys introduced me to Merle Haggard. And so I just became this. That didn't mess up our screen, did it?
No, you're good.
I should have put my phone on silent. So that was a huge factor in the success of my career. Was meeting Freddie, meeting Merle, meeting Willie, all within that couple of years in there. And then they just kind of took me under their wing. Freddie mainly with Catherine. He said, "You really have to learn how to play guitar." And I was like, "I know how to play guitar." And he was like, "No, you have to learn how to play guitar, really play guitar.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to compete with the men in this business, you have to look better, play better, sing better, and write better." And I was like, "But I don't want to." I was like, "I just want to sing. Can't I just get up there with my microphone like Crystal Gale and sing my songs?" And he said, "No, not if you want to be really good."
Right.
And so I was like, "Okay." And Catherine, she would back him up and be like, "You got to do it. You got to do it." And he's like, "Come on, kiddo." So they would invite me over, and I would go over to Freddie and Catherine's all the time and sit down with Freddie, and he would show me new guitar chords, new strumming patterns. And he's the one that taught me that acoustic guitar is its own instrument. meaning you can play lead guitar, but acoustic playing certain rhythms is an art.
Yep.
And it's something people don't really realize, that it's extremely complicated.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work really hard to be uh, a well-versed acoustic guitar player.
And it's more
And so I
vulnerable
spent
too. You're putting yourself out there more too when it comes to that.
right,
I feel.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so I spent a lot of time in high school over at their house, and I made sure to make straight A's so I could skip school as often as I could to go be in sports and to go over to Freddie and Catherine's and to go do shows. And then when college time came, I had to make a decision. I had full ride scholarships for softball. I was a really good softball player, and um, I had to make that decision. Am I going to go to college for sports, or am I going to go do these shows with Willie Nelson and Freddie Powers and continue on this path of music? Because the only reason I was going to go to college was to get a degree in music
Mm-hmm.
or business so that I could do music. But I had already been trained, I had already been on the road at this point for quite some time with all these people who were professionals who knew what they were doing. And I learned so much just being in the environment, being backstage at a Willie Nelson concert with Pootie,
Mm-hmm.
walking around with him telling everybody what to do, and then talking to the club owner at the end of the night, or the venue owner, as just sitting there with Pootie, or whoever. I learned by doing.
So
And
it's
for
just a
me,
whole.
that
There's
was
just a lot of sponging going on. You're just trying to be a
yes,
sponge. Yeah, just soaking everything in.
yes. And that's exactly it. And they let me hang around. I remember this one specific time where I was like, why am I here? Because it was Willie's bus, and he would have people on his bus at the end of the show, and they would get on and shake his hand and ask him questions and visit, and then they'd get off, and then somebody else would get on. There'd be like a line in and
Mm-hmm.
out.
Yeah.
And I was sitting on the couch waiting my turn to talk with him. And uh, so at the very end, Pootie goes, all right, everybody off, everybody off. And so I get up to leave, and he leaves over, goes, not you, Pauline, sit down. I was like, oh, okay. So I sat down, I'm like, oh, everybody off. Okay, bye. And so I'm sitting there, and Chris Christopherson and Billy Joe Shaver get on the bus with
Oh,
Willie. And it's
golly.
just me in there, this little, teenage kid. I'm like, hey. But I was always polite. Like when they were telling stories to each other or visiting, I didn't interrupt. And if I had something to say, it was usually something funny,
Mm-hmm.
which they loved, because that's half the culture is funny jokes and stories about the road.
And
So I
again,
think that
I just wanna say here, sorry for interrupting, but I just wanna say right
okay,
here, being in a large family probably served you well here as well, because being one of eight, you have to be noticeable, you have to be funny, you have to be personable, you have to be charming. And you also have to know when not to say anything. And so you
you're
learn
so right.
yeah, you learn all of those things when you're in a big family, I bet.
That's right. And my parents taught us, manners, morals, integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I joke with my mom. I used to call her phone late at night. I'd be like, "Hey, mom, if it weren't for your morals and integrity, I'd be famous." And just hang up.
It's mom's fault. She
Yeah,
she
gosh,
wouldn't let horses in the house, only sheep.
she messed up my whole career.